The hangar echoed with the metallic clatter of armored boots long before the creature appeared. I remember the vibration more than the sound, like the air itself was bracing for something too big, too powerful, too alive. The guards marched in a tight formation, rifles ready, their faces drawn tight with the kind of fear that made even trained soldiers look like children pretending to be brave. Then he ducked beneath the massive hangar doorway. The Korvath warrior. I had seen pictures of his species, but nothing prepared me for the living mountain before me. 8 feet tall, shoulders as broad as a cargo crate, his obsidian black skin gleamed like polished stone. Crimson energy lines pulsed across his body, glowing steadily like molten veins, each pulse a reminder that even restrained, he was dangerous enough to tear this station apart. Heavy shackles dug into his wrists and ankles, connected by magnetic chains that buzzed faintly with power. Several guards flinched each time the chains shifted, but not me. I sat on my overturned toolbox, grease on my hands, a wrench between my teeth, staring at him in open awe. "Wow," I said around the metal in my mouth, pulling it free. "You're magnificent." Every guard turned to look at me like I'd suddenly announced I was volunteering to be vaporized. The warrior's glowing eyes locked onto me. The temperature in the hangar seemed to drop. He studied me with a predator's stillness, his breath rumbling deep and heavy, vibrating through the deck plates. When he finally spoke, the sound was gravel and thunder wrapped in ancient fury. "Human," he rumbled, "do you not fear me?" "Of course I do," I admitted, sliding off the toolbox. "But fear's boring. You're interesting." He stared at me for a long, silent moment. Then, slowly, deliberately, he stepped forward, chains clinking, and everything in my life shifted. Drokar's containment cell wasn't a room. It was a bunker disguised as one. Reinforced alloy walls 8 inches thick, triple-locked magnetic restraints, and a watchtower of nervous guards monitoring every twitch he made. Most people wouldn't go near it without a squad backing them. I walked in carrying a meal pack and a med kit. The guards nearly fainted. "Tyron, you can't go in there," one whispered harshly. "He's a Korvath. He killed 3 boarding teams before we subdued him." I glanced back. "And you think starving and ignoring him will make him friendlier?" They didn't have an answer. They rarely did when logic got involved. I stepped inside. The cell door clanged shut behind me, leaving only the faint hum of the force barriers. Drokar sat chained to the floor, massive arms resting across his knees. His head was bowed, shoulders rising and falling with labored breaths. For the first time, he looked tired. "Hey," I said softly, walking closer. "You don't look so great." His head lifted. Those ember-red eyes pinned me with a glare sharp enough to cut steel. "Leave." "That's not happening." I set the ration pack down within his reach. He didn't move, didn't blink, just watched me like I was a puzzle no warrior had ever trained for. "You're injured," I continued. "Your armor's leaking and that flickering vein light thing, pretty sure that's not normal." A low growl vibrated in his chest. "My wounds are mine, they do not concern a fragile human." "Everything concerns me," I said, kneeling beside him, ignoring the alarms the guards were shouting through the intercom. "Especially when someone is hurting." He stared as if trying to understand why I would willingly kneel next to a creature who could crush my skull with one hand. Slowly, hesitantly, he picked up the ration pack, smelled it, tasted it. His eyes widened a fraction, not in pleasure but in disbelief. "You did not poison it," I snorted. "Poisoning someone is a terrible way to make friends." He paused. "Friends," he repeated quietly, as if testing the word's weight. Then, with a rumble that softened into something almost respectful, "My name is Drokar." I smiled. "Tyron, and I think we're going to get along just fine." The alarms shattered the station's uneasy calm, red lights painting every wall in a frantic pulse. I barely had time to register the sound of ships dropping out of warp before the first boarding teams hit the outer docking bay. Their target wasn't cargo, nor hostages. They came for Drokar. I ran toward the containment cell, heart hammering. Every instinct screamed at me to stay back, but the bond of trust, fragile, unspoken, pulled me forward. When I arrived, pirates had already begun tampering with the restraints. Drokar's massive frame strained against the chains, muscles rippling under obsidian skin, crimson lines pulsing erratically like a warning. His eyes, burning embers of controlled fury, met mine. "Tyron!" he bellowed, voice shaking the room. "Leave! You will die if you stay!" "Not a chance," I yelled back, slamming my hand onto the manual override panel. Sparks danced across the console as the magnetic locks groaned and the chains released their hold. The cell doors swung open with a metallic clang. Drokar stepped out, towering and unrestrained, each movement radiating raw, unbridled power. His crimson markings flared like molten fire as he roared, a sound that shook the walls and made the pirates hesitate. A plasma blast streaked toward me, but Drokar's massive arm intercepted it, deflecting the beam effortlessly. He looked down at me, eyes locking with mine. "You freed me." "I trusted you," I replied. "That was all it took." Side by side, we became a force no one could stop. Drokar moved with precision and strength, tearing through armed raiders as I hacked security nodes and rerouted power to reinforce barriers. The pirates had never faced an opponent like this, a warrior who fought for honor, and a human who refused to abandon him. By the time the last raider ship fled into warp, the station was battered but intact. Drokar lowered his head to meet mine, his deep rumble softer now. "You are the first to fight beside me willingly. I will not forget this, Tyron Vale." I wiped sweat from my brow. "Neither will I." For the first time I realized that fear could be transformed into something stronger, trust forged in the heat of battle. The station hummed with uneasy quiet after the battle. Smoke curled from scorched walls, alarms still blinked faintly, and every officer on duty wore a mixture of awe and fear. Drokar stood at the center of the hangar, massive and unshackled, his obsidian skin glinting in the emergency lighting. His crimson lines pulsed steadily, a heartbeat in the chaos. Military officials approached cautiously, voices clipped and professional. "Korvath Drokar," one began, "you are to be returned to the Galactic Authority for containment. Compliance is mandatory." Drokar's eyes, glowing like embers, swept over them. "I am no prisoner. I choose my allies," he said, each word deliberate, heavy with authority. "And I choose Tyron Vale." A ripple of shocked murmurs passed through the crowd. Humans and aliens alike froze. No Korvath had ever defied the authority so openly. I stepped forward, heart racing. "Drokar, you don't have to do this," I said quietly, still unsure if I had the right to intervene in the politics of the galaxy. He placed a massive hand on my shoulder, careful, gentle, despite the strength that could crush a starship hull. "You are the only being who treated me with honor instead of fear. Where you go, I go." Gasps and whispers ran through the room as he invoked an ancient Korvath life debt, binding himself to me not as a prisoner, not as a weapon, but as an ally. Officials dared not argue. The weight of tradition and the enormity of his presence silenced them all. I looked up at him, towering yet protective, and asked, "So partners?" Drokar bared his sharp, gleaming teeth in something that was unmistakably a grin. "War brothers," he rumbled. We boarded my refurbished cruiser, leaving the station behind. Stars streaked past the viewport, stretching into streaks of light as we jumped to faster-than-light speed. Drokar stood beside me, vigilant and steady, and I felt the first true sense of freedom in my life. "In the stories of my people, humans are fragile," he said quietly, his voice softer than before. "What do you think?" I asked. "You," he said, crimson veins glowing brighter, "are the bravest creature I have ever known." And just like that, the galaxy shifted. Not through conquest or fear, but because trust, courage, and friendship had dared to exist between a human and a giant alien warrior.